Hey everyone, welcome back to my kitchen. I'm Bethany, and today's recipe, we're making a super quick and easy 20-minute cherry tomato pasta dish. It's perfect for summer, especially if you're growing lots of cherry tomatoes, and it's full of fresh, bright flavor. So let's get right into it. Okay, so the first thing that we want to do is get our pasta water boiling. So I have a medium-sized pot here, and we're going to put this on a high heat so we can boil it. And we're first going to salt it. We want to make sure that our pasta water is always kind of like seawater. It's like that salty, just so we can flavor the pasta. Especially in a dish like this, where we really want to build flavor, we want the pasta to have flavor. And the pasta shape that I'm using today is by Frankie's 457. And it is Mezze Maniche. This is like a little baby rigatoni. I love this brand too. I also buy their olive oil. It's one of my favorites. Drew and I actually went to the restaurant, Frankie Spuntino in Brooklyn. Delicious. But back to the pasta, you can use any shape that you want. I just like using fun little shapes that can catch all the cheese and tomatoes. Next, we're gonna wait for the pasta water to come to a boil. And while we do that, we'll prep the ingredients. Okay, so now that we've prepped the ingredients, we're gonna get ready to cook the tomatoes. So I have a pretty large saucepan over medium heat right now. I wanna use a bigger pan because I'm gonna cook the tomatoes in this and I'm gonna put the pasta in this. So depending on how much you're baking, just use a larger or smaller pan. So I have this pan heating up, and then I'm gonna add some extra virgin olive oil, about 3 tablespoons. Nice generous amount. And then we're going to add our sliced garlic to the olive oil. And this is only going to cook for about 30 to 60 seconds, just because we don't want this to burn. So now we're ready to add our tomatoes. And I've just halved these just so that they cook a little bit faster. So I'm gonna add this in. Stir that in with the garlic. It smells so good. Garlic, tomatoes, olive oil, delicious. All right, now we're gonna add just a generous pinch of salt to season these. And then now we're gonna cook the tomatoes for about 10 minutes. They're gonna soften up, release a lot of juices, and become kind of like a little sauce almost. So we're gonna let them cook, stirring every so often. We don't wanna leave this, but just kind of letting these cook. And while this cooks, we're gonna put our pasta on. All right, so while the tomatoes are cooking, it's the perfect timing to cook the pasta because it only takes 10 minutes, and this should only take about 10 minutes too. So we're gonna add this to the boiling water. Now we're going to stir this together and cook this until the pasta is al dente, which just means that there's a little bit of a bite to it. So we don't want a super soft pasta for this dish. And while the pasta is cooking, we're gonna go back and check on our tomatoes. So our tomatoes have been cooking for a few minutes now, and as you can see, the juices have really released and they're softening up a good bit. And what I like to do at this point is to start kind of pressing my wooden spoon on some of the tomatoes just so I can kind of crush them a little bit and help them break down. You're kind of just encouraging them to cook even more and break down into a nice sauce. This smells delicious. And at this point, I'm going to add my red pepper flakes just so it can now cook with the tomato sauce. So I'm just doing a nice little pinch, nothing crazy. Enough where we can get a little bit of heat, but nothing super spicy. We're just gonna stir that in, let it cook with the tomatoes even more. This is the perfect pasta dish to make in the summer when you're growing lots of cherry tomatoes. Last summer, Drew and I were growing our first time cherry tomatoes, and they produced so many, and I could only make so many salads with it, so I was like, let's throw them in a pasta dish. And it is absolutely delicious, and it's so fresh and flavorful. It's really perfect for summer. So again, great dish to use cherry tomatoes if you're growing them at home. So the sauce is pretty much done, and this is kind of how you know is that the structure of the tomatoes have really broken down and released a lot of juices, and it's a little bit thicker in consistency. So now we can add our pasta. Okay, so I brought my pasta over and I just tasted it. It's a little bit too al dente, so I don't mind if it just sits in there for a second. But what I'm gonna do is use a pasta spoon to kind of transfer it into the tomatoes. Just make sure to reserve about 1 to 2 cups of pasta water just to be safe, because it's a really essential ingredient in this dish. We don't want this pasta dish to be dry. The pasta water has lots of good starches in it, so it makes a creamy texture to this dish. So we need it. So don't drain it all, save it, or just do it like this and use something to transfer it in. But what I'm gonna do is just take a good bit of pasta and put it in my tomatoes. And then we're gonna get our basil and we're gonna put that in there. And then I wanna get a little bit of some pasta water to put in here, just so it can kind of loosen up the dish a little bit. So we're gonna put a little bit of that in. And we're gonna toss this together. And I want it, before I add the cheese, I wanna just make sure that this has enough liquid in it so that the cheese can melt. I've used about 1 cup so far of pasta water. Then we're gonna get our freshly grated Parmigiano Reggiano and put this in here. This is a very generous cup, so I might not use it all. We wanna make sure that this pasta dish is hot when we put the cheese in, and that it has a good amount of hot liquid in there, like the pasta water and tomatoes, so that it melts. I'm gonna add a little bit more pasta water. Stir this in. And we're gonna add a little bit more cheese now. You can kind of do the cheese in batches too, so it all melts evenly. All right, so this is ready, but we wanna add some black pepper first before we taste it. Nice generous amount. All right, and now this is ready to taste, and I cannot wait. It's so good. So much flavor is packed into this. It's so unexpected. Even with using the simplest ingredients in this dish, it has so much flavor right away. Just lots of great Parmesan salty flavor, balanced with that fresh tomato, fresh basil, a little bit of heat with the red pepper. It's delicious. And it's the simplest, easiest pasta dish. Takes 20 minutes to make. And really, I've had restaurant pasta dishes that don't taste as good as this. So it's great, and you can use fresh garden ingredients. What could be better? All right, now that we got to try this delicious pasta dish, we're gonna have my dad come and try it too.
Well, thanks for inviting me over.
You're welcome.
And I am hungry.
Okay, so.
I was actually outside working on something.
I am not surprised.
And I'm looking forward to tasting this new dish here.
Okay.
I have yet to be disappointed with anything that you've made. So this is it?
Yeah, you can just, it's just a little taste. It's the, he's never had this dish before. It is my cherry tomato pasta, fresh basil. Pasta's a little al dente, but got garlic, fresh tomatoes, and Parmigiano.
Outstanding. I love Italian, and you certainly know how to make it.
Oh, thanks. Fun fact about my dad, he actually built this kitchen and our whole house.
It's pretty nice. Got a nice view. Nice and bright.
Yes.
And the food is excellent.
Good.
No sense in having a nice kitchen if you can't cook.
This is true.
You know.
Very true.
Well, thank you.
Aw, you're
I'm going to
welcome.
finish this off.
All right.
And I'll have some more.
All right. What do you want to rate this out of 10? How many stars would you give it?
Well, it's nice and hot.
I know, I did make it
Just
hot
the
for
way I
you.
like it. It tastes great. It's the pasta is supple. I mean, it's excellent. What more could I ask for? I would rate it as a 10. It's just the way I like it.
Nice.
Thank you.
All right, well, thanks, Dad. He thought my blog one time, you said the word supple. One time he thought my blog's name was A Supple Palate.
Sounded good.
Yeah. All
Well,
right.
thank you.
Thanks, Dad. We'll see you later.
I'm gonna eat this.
I know you will. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed having my dad here. He's back there enjoying the pasta. I hope you guys love this pasta dish. It is definitely one to try, especially if you're growing lots of amazing stuff in your garden, like tomatoes and basil. It's super easy and it's full of incredible flavor, even though we used the simplest of ingredients. So it's delicious. I hope you get to try it. And if you do, feel free to comment on our recipe or on the video below. I'd love to hear what you think, and we'll catch you on the next recipe.
I'm gonna eat this.
I know you will. I heated it up just for you.
Good, delicious,
Don't
very
die and trip.
Here comes the dog.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Dad. That was great.
I don't know how that works, but
Say al dente, that just means, Okay. And al dente, it just means to the tooth, which just means that there's a little bit of a bite when you bite into it to the tooth. So, does that make sense? To the tooth. It's gonna become really saucy and they're saucy.
Saucy.
Saucy.